So this is just some information about those talking counseling. So like I said, there are pre-booked appointments now, but it's free. There's no referral necessary. And you can just call in and have access to it. It's lovely where it's also in Ingersoll and Tillsonburg as well, because a lot of our other communities within Oxford County sometimes feel left out by a lot of the programming being within Woodstock. But yeah, United Way has funded this program for quite a few years now, and it is a very wonderful program. So we talked more about those hard conversations. So, you know, when you see somebody is having a hard time with their mental health, but I did want to talk as well about some of the crisis and emergency situations as well, because our approach might change a little bit in terms of how like open we are to people, you know, not wanting support and not accessing support. There's different ways that we might want to approach things if it is more of a crisis or emergency situation. So this slide is just trying to differentiate between crisis and emergency. So for example, if somebody's in crisis, they might be talking about suicide. So they might be making suicidal comments like, you know, I don't want to be here anymore, I don't want to live anymore, or just having those general kind of suicidal statements. The emergency might be when somebody is then acting on those suicidal thoughts, right? Then it's more of an emergency. The next is crisis, being self-injury, not requiring immediate medical attention. And then emergency is if there was medical attention. The reason why self-injury is more of a crisis than a general conversation around mental health is just because there's a higher risk there. Not everybody who engages in self-injurious behavior is necessarily suicidal. However, there could just be some potential risks, like, you know, someone harming too far, right, and putting their life and their safety in danger. So that's why it does go into more of the crisis category. Another crisis might be if there's that kind of severe impairment by alcohol or drugs. We might be trying to kind of try and connect with those crisis supports, or find a time that we're able to connect with those crisis supports while we're not intoxicated, because again, there's some real safety concerns there. So it might not be a call to 911, but it's a red flag that really we do need some services to be in place here. And then, of course, it's more of that 911 call when it is concerns for an overdose. So if you ever think that somebody is overdosing, for sure, call 911, get those emergency services in there. And it's also an emergency if there's the potential for immediate harm to themselves or others. So the difference there being, crisis, we can create a plan to connect with crisis supports. We can be a bit more open and flexible, knowing that we do really want to make sure that they connect with a crisis support at some point in time, whereas emergency is like, no, like we need connection right away. So we use safety plans within crisis situations. So really, safety plan to stay safe. I know using the words within the definition that are included in it can be a little confusing, but it is literally just a plan to stay safe. We do use it within a crisis situation. Within these safety plans, we want to focus on what the person can do to keep themselves safe. So again, this is a crisis situation. This isn't, you know, immediate concern. We need to be accessing crisis supports in that immediate moment. So we're going to focus on what they can do to keep themselves safe, what they feel like is helpful. You can find out what's helped them in the past. So again, like maybe they already have connected to resources in the past. Maybe they know what keeps them safe and what's helpful for them. We want to be realistic with timelines. So like a safety plan might be helpful if, you know, you're talking to somebody and they do disclose some suicidal thoughts, but they say, but, you know, I am meeting with my counselor tomorrow and I want to talk to her about them more, and saying, okay, so how do we keep you safe for tonight? Like what numbers do you need to call? Who can you call? Do you have the reach out number? Make sure that you're safe until that next appointment. If someone says, you know, oh, well, I meet it with my psychiatrist in 2 months, telling them, you know, to keep themselves safe for 2 months might be too long, depending on, you know, the situation, or, you know, asking somebody to promise you that they'll never hurt themselves ever again. that might not be realistic for them. It might not be as tangible. So we want to be as realistic as possible. Like I was saying, including the contact numbers can be really helpful. There's also the Be Safe app that you can get and download, and you can even store the contact information within it so that people have that like click right away, right? For somebody to have those numbers already in their phone can be really helpful rather than in crisis having to look up numbers and things like that. And really, again, kind of making sure that other people are included in this. It can be extremely challenging to try and be somebody's only part of their safety plan, right? So saying, you know, okay, well, anytime that you feel unsafe, day or night, you call me. That's maybe not sustainable, right? As much as we want to be that person, we want to keep that person safe and we want to be helpful. We need to make sure that there's other supports in place because you might be sleeping. You might have a crisis of your own. Like you can't be everything for everybody. So finishing off with just a quick slide here on some self-care, because these conversations are hard. It's not easy to have some of these conversations, especially when we're talking about more of the crisis and emergency supports. Yeah, like it's a difficult conversation to have, and you need to be easy on yourself and take care of yourself as well. So pay attention to how you feel after, right? Don't just say, yep, you know, I had to do that. Okay, let's push forward, right? Pay attention to how you feel afterwards. Are you feeling drained? Like, it's okay if you're exhausted afterwards. It's okay if, you know, after you talk to somebody who's really anxious, you start feeling anxious yourself. Like, those are normal responses to these kinds of conversations. So just pay attention to how you're feeling. You might want to engage in soothing or comforting activities. I mean, everybody's different, right? So maybe it is having a cup of tea afterwards, or going for a walk around the block, or doing a fun activity that you enjoy, doing something to really like refill your tank. You also might want to debrief afterwards. I know, of course, we're mindful of confidentiality and everything, but like, you don't have to say, you know, so-and-so from down the block was telling me about this. You can just say like, hey, this friend of mine was having a really hard time and it was a really hard conversation. And you can still have all of the benefits of a debrief by having that kind of conversation. And if you ever feel like you don't know who you can debrief with, you don't know who to talk to about this stuff, come to CMHA, call, reach out, have those conversations as well, because that debrief is really important. And it's important to take care of yourself so that you have the ability and capacity to take care of other people in the future. And lastly, know your own limits. If there's a particular sense or a situation that's very triggering to you, if you feel like you're pushed too far, you're pushed to your limits, this is again when it's really helpful to have other people involved in the support plan that you can pull on, you can trade off. Yeah, because if you continue to push past your limits, then you're not going to have the capacity to help other people, and we don't want to see you be unwell as well. So that is all of the presentation that I have for you. Lots of information, but really it's just about having these hard conversations and knowing, you know, how to get people connected to supports, and yeah, ultimately how to keep them in control and empowered through those conversations as well.
So thank you so much, Christine. That was such a thoughtful presentation. I'm very grateful to have you in CMHA in Woodstock, because I know how many people you have helped. So thank you very much. Now, before I stop this recording to go to Q&A, I'd just like to let people know what's coming up. So New Beauty and Trends for Fall is October the 20th, and that's being presented by Jane Ross of Alente Beauty Institute. Next is Yoga, November the 3rd, being presented by Allison Dross of the Woodstock School for Dance and Yoga. And then we have Understanding Memory Loss on November 17th with Alzheimer's Society. And finally, to finish off the year, on December 1st, Envisioning New Goals for 2022, where Marcia Barona will synergize ideas into hopefully good realities for the next year.